13.3. And the one thing we're going to say to you today is, first and foremost, if you're struggling with these, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and go on Edmodo or shoot a note to me. I have kind of like a helper sheet for you to help you take notes. So by the end of the video, what do you need to do to be able to say you did this video? Understand, basically, first thing we want to be able to understand is the cost of the war. Explain the reasons why Germany and Russia got out and why America got out. Alright, and those sort of questions are on the helper sheet I made for everybody. So feel free to either shoot me a note, or I believe it's already on the board for you. So here we go, we're on to 13.3. Right? This is the epic picture of this video. I want to remind you to put on the sound, and if there's any way you could have this awesome headset, that would be great, because here, this is me imagining you really enjoying it. Gosh, that's almost like a self-picture. Good. Alright, so first thing we want to know is 13.3 is about how the entire world's at war. If you look, the yellowish orange are the Central Powers, the green are the Allies. Look, there's almost nowhere in the world that is unaffected. Alright? So that's super important to notice. This is truly a world war. World War I is much more than a European conflict. Austria and Japan, for example, entered on the Allied side, while India supplied troops alongside their British rulers. The Indians were hoping to get freedom, prove to the British that they were good helpers and get out. The Ottoman Turks and later Bulgaria aligned themselves Germany with the Central Powers. So basically what happened is, once the war broke out, people are picking sides. As the war promised to be a grim, drawn-out affair, all the great powers look for other help. One of the main things we're going to see here for tipping the balance is America. Both sides are going to actively try to recruit America, because America was an industrial nation, was powerful. Italy's a special case. Remember, they flipped sides. Halfway through the war, they realized, if I'm on the other side, we have a better chance of getting more land, so they flip sides. We see battles in Africa and Asia. The Allies take control of Germany's holdings in Asia and Africa. Britain and France use their colonial subjects to help in the war. Think especially here India. India fought besides England in the hopes of gaining future independence. We already talked about that. So again, literally, the whole world's at war. Alright, we talked about that. Allies take control. We did that. Good. We did that. One of the more famous battles is going to be this Battle of Gallipoli. The Allies moved to capture the Ottoman area, and they hoped to defeat the Ottoman Empire, Central Powers ally, and they also wanted to open a supply line through the region of Russia. The hope was that the Allies wanted to be able to take ships here and get supplies to Russia. They weren't able to do it, and this ends in a costly defeat for the Allies. So who won this battle? The Central Powers. Alright? Germany. Who lost? Who's a loser, baby? The Allies. Alright? Good. What makes this war important is it's total war. Everyone, everywhere, everything's affected. Whereas today, there's wars going on. In your lifetime, there's been several wars going on by Americans, and very few of us feel it. The nations are going to devote all their resources to war. There's a famous quote. They're going to pump out all their gold and pour out all their blood to try to win. So you'll hear that quote several times, of spilling blood in gold. Government take control of the economy to produce war goods. In other words, we're not making stuff for housewives anymore. Factories get turned into making weapons. Nations turn to rationing, the limiting of purchasing of war-related goods. In other words, hey, you can only buy gas on so many days, rubber, all types of different things. Propaganda is one-sided information to build morale and support for the war. Also, we'll see propaganda used by the Germans and the English to try to get America, because America at the beginning of the war is sitting out. And basically the Germans and the British realize whatever side America goes on is probably going to win the war. So they're actually going to send propaganda, kind of advertisement, one-sided information. to America to try to get us pick. But also within Germany, they're going to do propaganda to keep their people excited. The British are going to do propaganda within their country to keep their country excited. Amazing thing, I forget the percentage, but a large number of German people thought they were winning the war till the war ended. And we'll talk about that a little bit with the peace. We're going to see women get involved in this war. Two ways they get involved is, think about it, who are soldiers, men. So if the men go overseas fighting, women fill their jobs. All right. Many women also experience the war by working as nurses. So we're going to see a radical change for women. In fact, think about it. The war ends in 1919 for America. In 1920, women get the right to vote. That is not a coinkydink. Basically, after the war, the women said, look how helpful we were, let us vote. And the men are basically like, fine, we have to let you vote. How else did the war affect the civilian? Civilians had to work and grind to produce out war-related materials. Food and fuel was rationed. There was only certain days where you can buy certain things. Americans had wheatless and breadless days. By breadless days, it means you didn't eat bread. You would use other things. Millions die from disease, bombing, and starvation. Again, this is another place where that total war comes in. Think about it. If you need to win the war, you got to knock out your opponent's factories, so you bomb factories. Who lives near factories? Civilians. What happens to the civilians when they get bombed? They pass away. America joins the fighting. Germany seeks to control the Atlantic Ocean to stop supplies. Again, we'll see a map of this, but here's England, there's Germany. All the supplies were coming this way. Germans are trying to sink it with their Untersee boats, their U-boats. And the British were trying to sink those. And that's what happens. Germany uses unrestricted submarine warfare and basically sink all the ships that are trying to go to Britain. Some of those ships have Americans on it. Americans get mad as hell and they're not going to take it anymore. So why did America join the war? On the surface, it looks like this unrestricted submarine warfare. Many historians have pointed now, many people believe there's a financial reason. We were loaning tons of money to the Allies. So the argument becomes, if all our money is going to the Allies, we have an investment, a stake in who's going to win this war. All right? And the theory is Uncle Sam joins the Allies to protect his money. Remember, cream, cash rules everything around me. All right, there's Lusitania. Sadly, very soon, Lusitania is going to get attacked by a German Untersee boat. You can't see it. It's right here. It's not pretend. And when that boat sinks, something like 12 Americans die, and all of America gets pissed, and we get upset at the Germans. We don't like them anymore. We talked about this. So 1917, Germany goes to fully unrestricted warfare. Any boat going to Britain, they're going to sink. So that upsets America. Then there was this Zimmerman telegram where basically Germany sends a note to Mexico and says, hey, if you join the war, when we win, we'll give you Texas. Once the Americans hear that, once the Americans see what happened to Lusitania, we're mad as hell and we can't stand it anymore. We join. The United States joins on the Ally side. Think about it. What language do you speak? English. So we have a natural affinity to help who? The British. Good. So how did the Allies win the war? Well, the first thing that happens is Russia jumps out of the war. Russia is going to go through a revolution in 1917. The communists are going to take control of Russia, and the communists in control of Mother Russia sign a treaty in Germany and pull out of the war. Why is that important? And this is something you guys messed up on the quiz. Over here is the Eastern Front. There's the Western Front. If Russia pulls out of the war, does Germany need to fight them anymore? No. So what happens by Russia dropping out, it goes from a two-front war to a one-front war. All right? Check for understanding. Why did Russia quit the war? People were unhappy. People were starving. They had the Russian revolt, which made them communist. That's why I chose the red. All right. Next question. What kind of government did Russia become after the war? Communist. In fact, technically, it's happening during the war. All right. Keep it cruising. Now Germany only has to fight on the west side. Very good. We did that. Not going to waste your time with it. So basically, Germany goes one more time, tries to attack, tries to basically knock the French out of the war at the Second Battle of the Marne River. The U.S. fights there. Germany's nearly, basically close to collapsing. The Germans lose at the Battle of the Marne. So who's the loser? Central Powers. Who's the winner? The Allies. And basically after that, this is hilarious. The German Navy basically mutinied. The Kaiser would say, get in that boat and go sink things. And the Germans were like, no. And he's like, get in that boat or I'm going to kill you. And they're like, dude, that's what's going to happen to us anyhow. So what happens is the Kaiser is forced to step down. There's basically a revolt in Germany. They don't want this war anymore. And when does the war end? 11/11/11/11 of 1918. All right? On the 11th hour, on the 11th day, in the 11th month, the treaty was signed. In fact, you guys get that day off at school today still because of that tradition. All right? So you need to know the revolution engulfed Austria-Hungary and the empire. So basically all of the Central Powers basically surrender. And on 11/11/11, Germany finds an armistice, a ceasefire that ends the war. What is the legacy of the war? Heavy toll. 8.5 million soldiers are dead. 21 million soldiers are wounded. The war devastates European economies, drains national treasures. So here's the blood, there's the gold. All right, many of acres of lands, homes, villages, towns destroyed. And basically, the people who survived were gutted. They lost almost all the teenage boys in all of these countries, and it's a terrible, terrible thing. On the average battle, about 100,000 men would die. This picture here once was a forest and is now a swamp. Alright? On average, how many people died in the battle in World War I? About 100,000. Alright? 3.75 million total casualties. Russia lost the most troops. Russia lost the most people, but they had the most people to throw at the war. Alright? Russia, Germany, France, British, Austria, Italy. United States, down here. We're right between Greece and Bulgaria. Alright? Now look, interesting. The winning side, the Allies lose 56%. The bad guys only lose 44%. By looking at this chart, who should have won the war? But because especially Russia had so many more people, they were able to throw tons at this effort. Alright, boys and girls, 2 more seconds here. Outcomes of World War I. Property worth $30 billion had destroyed. Allies had spent this much. Central Powers had spent this much. Basically, it led to food shortages all over the place after the war. It led to a flu epidemic that killed more than the war did. The flu epidemic comes to America, and we're going to talk about a little bit about some atrocities. And I know I'm going into overtime, but this is important. Germany gets accused of atrocities. The Allies get accused of atrocities. Because this is the only way Germany could get food in, when the British put their blockade of ships up, German people start starving to death. The German accused of atrocities because they were sinking boats. They'd have their U-boat, attack boat. But the main tragedy here is the Armenian tragedy. Armenians are a group of people who lived in the Ottoman Empire who wanted to help the Allies. They were exterminated by the Turks who held the Ottoman Empire. And the main thing you need to know is about 1.5 million Armenians were strategically, basically, killed. Here you see one of the marches. Here you see some of the results. One of the famous stories is that one of the leaders of the Ottoman Empire filled up a boat with Armenians and then just sunk it. Here you see more. Here's a little map of it. The red lines are the marches. The red dots are where massacres happen. The red dots are equal to the size of the number of people who were killed. You'll notice, boys and girls, that I did put the kind of funny thing at the front to stop this. so we wouldn't laugh during this. Most Armenians in America are children of grandchildren of the survivors. They still have a Remembrance Day on April 24th. So an incredible, incredible tragedy. Like I said, 2.5 million Armenians were in the Ottoman Empire. 1.5 million of them were killed. All right. What country had the highest number of casualties? Russia. What is a casualty? Injured person. What does rationing mean? The limiting of an item. Who killed more people? What killed more people? World War I, a Spanish flu? The flu. Who committed the Armenian genocide?